Time for another board game review, and this time we have the game Spyfall. This was sent to me by Cryptozoic Entertainment. Loose lips sink ships is a saying that dates back to the days of World War II. It also represents a vital wartime principle. There were lots of things that could give spies away. Rust-free staples in their documents, square-headed nails in the soles of their boots, and so on. This game offers everyone an opportunity to walk a mile in the shoes of both a spy who's close to having their cover blown and the special agent who's hot on the spy's heels. So in a game of Spyfall, it's several short rounds. In each round, all of the players find themselves in a specific location, and some of those include like a movie studio, a school, a carnival, some more interesting stuff, Crusader army, a submarine, a pirate ship. And so everyone gets a card, and on the card it has the location, but one of you is a spy. Now, since the spy has this card, they have no idea where they are, and their job is to try to figure out where they are without blowing their cover. Meanwhile, the rest of the players are trying to figure out which of them is the spy and doesn't actually know where they are. And the game is played by asking questions to each other. So you might ask something to a player, hey, how many people do you see? Or, what's that smell? Or, you having fun today? These are sort of questions so that it's not too obvious, because if you ask very obvious questions like, are you late for class? Then the spy's gonna go, yo, we're in school, bitch. So all the locations are divided into these little bags, and they have a spy card in them along with location cards. You shuffle up the cards for the number of players and deal them out, and ta-da, one of you is a spy. Now every round is timed, so you have to have a stopwatch. That's not included, but everyone has a watch on their phone. It's an 8-minute timer. And so you have 8 minutes to try to ask each other questions and figure out who the spy is, or if you're the spy, where you are. You can ask any kind of question you want, but you cannot have follow-up questions. So if you ask, they have to just answer. And you can't answer another question to clarify something. Also, you can't ask a question to someone who just asked you a question. So let's say John asked me a question, I would have to ask a different player a question and not John. Now there's 3 ways a round can end. If you think you know who the spy is, you can stop the timer and accuse someone else of being the spy. But then you have to have a unanimous vote against that player from everybody. So unanimous vote happens, and if that person turned out to be the spy, hey, all the other players win. If they weren't the spy, guess what? The spy wins because they successfully remained undetected and you blamed someone else for being the spy. Now, if you make an accusation and it doesn't go through, you can't make another accusation that round, so you have to use it wisely. Now, the spy can also stop the round if they think they know where they are. And what they do is they reveal their card, ha, I'm a spy, and they can look at the booklet of locations, and if they guess correctly, then they win. If not, the other players win. And if the round ends after 8 minutes and no spy has been determined or the spy has not revealed themselves, then you do a series of votes to try to figure out who the spy is. So one player will start and they'll accuse a player. Everyone votes. If it's not unanimous, you move on to the next player. They get to choose somebody and so on. And so you go around everyone, and if everyone goes around and no unanimous vote happens, the spy wins because you couldn't figure out who the spy was. So if no one is successfully convicted of being the spy at the end, the spy gets 2 points. If a different player gets convicted of being the spy that's not the spy gets 4 points. And if the spy stops the game and successfully guesses the location, that's 4 points. For non-spy victories, since it's much easier for the non-spies, everyone gets 1 point if they win, and if you successfully initiated the conviction of the spy, then you get 2 extra points. Then after a certain number of rounds, you determine at the beginning of the game, whoever has the most points is the winner. And that's the game. Now I gotta say, this game was an absolute hit. I'd heard about this game a lot from friends, and honestly, I was a little skeptical. I was like, really, is it gonna be that fun? It seems like being the spy is way too hard compared to the other jobs. But actually, because everyone is so suspicious of the other players, it's actually a pretty even playing field. Because sometimes what happens is maybe you answer a question too vaguely, and then everyone suspects you even though you're not the spy. And sometimes you might ask a question, and other players might go, that's a weird question to ask, and they might think you're the spy. You'd be surprised at how easy it is to suspect someone when the game starts going. There's a really fun variety of locations. I like that some of them are mundane and some of them are absurd, like, you know, the difference between the Crusader army and school is pretty striking. And yet there's a lot of similarities between locations that can make it tricky for the spy. For example, I was the spy once, and I was sure that we were at a university, but it turns out we were at a school. One thing that does suck is there's a possibility of being the spy, and if someone asks you a question, the very first question, just by bad luck, and you blow it, then there's really nothing you can do. It can be funny though, like the game is meant to be played quickly. The rounds are up to 8 minutes, and almost, for our experience, never lasts that long. So if you end up messing up on the first question, it's usually just pretty funny. But that is something that can happen, so it's better to play with as many people as you can, because the more players there are, the less likely it is that the spy will be asked on the very first question, because that's rough. You know nothing about it, and if you can't bluff your way out of it, you're screwed. Although, it's happened where spies have bluffed on the very first question and actually managed to survive. They managed to convince everyone else that they were okay by luck. Now, I wonder how much longevity the game has. I mean, it's a game I think you can easily burn out on because there's only so many locations. There's, I think, 30 locations in Spyfall, and so there's a good number. But I do, like many identity game, if you play it too much in one sitting, you'll probably burn out. But there's also a variation of the game where the cards have roles on them. Like for school, we got security guard, gym teacher, janitor. And so you are that character, but you can't say what your role is, obviously. But so that makes the game a little more interesting because your answer might be strange, but it's because your role is strange. So I wouldn't suggest playing with the roles in the beginning, but once you've played a couple rounds, the roles are actually very fun. Because what they do is they kind of make the answers to questions more interesting. Because you go, why did that person say that? And you're trying to figure out what role are they? And it's an interesting little meta game. Now, if you get tired of Spyfall, you can actually try Spyfall 2, which Cryptozoic also sent me. It's the same rules. There's actually 20 locations in this, which actually was kind of a big disappointment to me, because that's a lot easier than 30. And this set actually lets you play with more players, and you can actually have 2 spies. We did not try this version. But it's an interesting idea that there are 2 spies for more players. Spyfall 2 was as fun as Spyfall 1, but honestly, the fact that it's 10 less locations is actually a pretty big detriment to it. That and the locations feel a little bit too strikingly different. What I liked about Spyfall's mix of locations is that there was some mundane stuff that kind of could be confused with things, but these are all very distinct, like coal mine, candy factory, cemetery. It's pretty drastically different. You could maybe do a thing where you combine both games. That'd be 50 locations. That sounds pretty tough, but it could work, I guess. So as a standalone game, I can't recommend this. As an expansion to Spyfall 1, it works. I kind of wish there was 30, though, because then it could be just as equal to Spyfall 1, I think. Overall, though, this game was an absolute blast. We had so much fun playing it, and it kind of gave a new sort of twist on the secret role game. Yeah, I really enjoyed this, and I would highly recommend it as a really fun, but tense, but fun party game. It's good stuff.